Welcome to the E-commerce Momentum Podcast, where we focus on the people, the products, and the process of e-commerce selling today. Here's your host, Stephen Peterson.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Momentum Podcast. This is episode 21, Michael Flanagan. You know, this interview, again, takes us in a little bit of a different direction. And Michael is so knowledgeable in the IT world, 25 plus years experience, database administrator, just developing web stuff way back in the beginning of the internet, you know, and it just fascinates me. But his level of understanding is an advantage for us because he takes the time in this segment to explain a whole bunch of reasons why Amazon handles things the way they do and why interfaces work the way they do. So I think this is going to be a great segment for you to get a better understanding and maybe answer some of those questions you might have had. So let's get into the podcast. All right, welcome back to the E-commerce Momentum Podcast. And tonight I'm really excited because the gentleman that I have on tonight is kind of in a similar situation. He's selling on Amazon part-time, and he's got a full-time job, a big job. And what's really interesting to me is that he's been selling for a couple of years on Amazon, but he's been selling for over 25 years. So I think this is going to be a great interview, and I'm really looking forward to it. Hey, welcome, Michael Flanagan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited. You know, Michael, you're an IT guy, you know, an old school IT guy. I'm not calling you old.
Yeah, but I am.
But, you know, you are an old school IT guy. And so, you know, how does an old school IT guy, right, very analytical, very thorough, very detail-oriented, become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's I think what it was is that I started out early in the big computer rush, so this would have been in the mid 80s, and I don't know, I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit because I got out of college with my degree and just didn't feel like going to work for a consulting firm or anything, so I opened my own, and I started as a freelance computer consultant, and then did that through most of the 80s, and then got into the 90s with the big boom of web development, and grew from there. So went from being a sole proprietor just on my own consulting to hiring a few web developers and doing a lot of web development back when, you know, the internet was really just starting to kick on. So I think I've always had that, and that's why I say I've been selling, because what I've been selling is not product, but selling myself and my services.
I love it. So you were at the start of the internet. I mean, in essence, you know, I know it's been around since Al Gore started it, you know, before he was born.
300 baud modem, baby. 300 baud modem.
So you were actually so you've seen it evolve. You know, it's one of those things that I always wonder, how do people keep up with this stuff? How do you keep up with this technology? I mean, it must be amazing to you.
It absolutely is, and one of the you know, little funny stories I've told over the years is I would go into clients and I'd be quoting a contracting job or just consulting time, and way back in the mid 80s into early 90s, my rate was $120 an hour. And at that time, that was a pretty decent rate. And they said, you know, we don't pay our lawyer that much. And I said, yeah, for good reason, because your lawyer doesn't have to know as much as I do. And they kind of give you that sideways look. And I said, no, honestly, you go ask your lawyer when he graduated from law school, and he'll probably say 15 or 20 years ago. And then I'll say, and based on that, how much of the knowledge that you learned in school do you still get to use today? And they would say, well, there's always new laws coming out, but for the most part, 80% of what I learned in school I still use every day. And I said, well, what I learned 5 years ago is useless because the technology has just trudged right on. So it is a never-ending. It's constant reading, constant learning, online courses and such. So yeah, it's a constant staying up with the technology.
But what a great set of transferable skills. You know, you were able to study, read up on it, try things, learn it. Isn't it transferable to the Amazon world?
Oh yeah, definitely, because the skills that I've learned on the tech side have certainly helped me on the Amazon side, because there are lots of things that I'm able to do because of my tech background that are a little bit more difficult for other people to do. And the other portion of that is being able to very quickly get into rules and regulations and reporting and things of that nature that are all second nature to me. So I get in and I figured out Amazon, I figured out Seller Central really quickly.
Yeah, I would. Navigating that must be just a breeze to you.
Yeah, there's really nothing new. When an application comes out that's brand new, supposedly brand new, I can usually sit down to it and within just a couple of clicks here and there say, okay, yep, I see how this works, because it's near impossible to develop something truly new. You're building on everything else that's out there and making things better, but yeah, there's not a lot that really stumps me unless it's poorly designed.
Well, let's stop there a second and pause on that, because you're in a position to, and I don't want you criticizing anything, so let's stay positive, right? Because this is about process. But let's talk about some of the scraping tools that are out there, some of the other software it comes out every day. I just saw somebody else say, "Oh, I'm developing a tool that'll do this," and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, another one! I can't keep track of what there are." What do you see? What do you see that's really working well? What do you see that's not working so well, and where do you see it going?
Well, there are definitely applications out there that are doing it well. Seller Central is not one of them. I don't want to go negative, but hey, come on, it's Amazon. The tools in Amazon Seller Central should be state of the art, and little things like, you cannot print to a Dymo label printer. You can only print 30 ups from Seller Central unless you go buy a third-party app. Really? Okay. That one just baffles me, and their reporting is less than stellar. But to their credit, they keep coming out with new features. So I guess that's coming along. But the tools out there, the scan powers and the inventory labs, and I just started using AppEagle as a repricer. So those things are really valuable and help you along. But I will touch on one of the things that you said right off, which was the screen scrapers. And I'll tell you right now that I wrote my own screen scraper to be able to search Amazon for shoe deals. Amazon is well known to bail on last year's style or something that they consider a failed product, and you can see where they will have a shoe that they used to sell for $79 that they drop it to $39, and then they drop it to $29 and $19. And if you look at the graph of the pricing, you can see the stair step until they hit a certain level, and they say that's as low as we're going until we blow these out. And I recognized that and said, look, I can just scan through the Amazon site and find these things. And as I was developing that app, I heard rumors of violation of terms of service as far as scraping Amazon, and I kept that a little bit in the back of my mind, but pressed ahead. And then as I was continuing to work on it, my tool stopped working. And when I actually looked at what my tool was getting back as a response from Amazon as it kept hitting these different pages, the response from Amazon, instead of an ASIN, a price, and some details about the product, was some legal verbiage that basically says we recognize that this is not a legitimate web browser visitor, and this is a violation of our terms of services. If you would like to access Amazon through this, we have an API, and all of the legal mumbo-jumbo that just basically said you're not allowed to do this. And I think that that's why some of the apps that were out there that were web scrape-based stopped working.
And so why would they be concerned about that? What from a technical point of view? I mean, don't get too technical, but I mean, what's the risk for them?
Because they published somewhere, I don't know if it was Amazon or another one of the big web traffic monitoring, is it was estimated that over 90% of the traffic that hits Amazon's website is robot-based, not customer-based.
Wow.
So that's bandwidth. Amazon pays for that. Amazon pays for the bandwidth coming in and out of their website, and it also affects the customer experience with slower responses. So it is a big deal. And you think about I don't know what they've said, 2 million third-party sellers. And I've kind of said that if there are 2 million third-party sellers, half of those were signed up and they never did anything, so now we're down to 1 million. And of those 1 million, half of those sent in a few items and couldn't quite figure it out or thought it wasn't worth its time. So I'm going to say there's probably between 300 and 500,000 active sellers. Nothing to base that on, just a gut feeling. But you still talk about that and start thinking about the number of people that are out there developing tools and using these tools and are hitting Amazon.com rather than the API. It's easy to see how it could overload their system.
That makes sense. That's the best explanation. I really appreciate that because it's something I'm always wondering why that was. So that's great stuff. So those are what's working, right? And what you just described was something that's not working and explained it very well. Where do you see the future of that stuff going? What can you see next? I mean, I haven't seen the Google Glass yet where you're walking into a retail store and you're just looking around with your glasses and it's linked directly. I haven't seen that. I don't know whether the bandwidth is there on the, whatever, Wi-Fi or whatever. What do you see?
I don't see Google Glass happening. I think that was a fantastic idea, but the price point isn't going to be able to get there. They're too expensive for the average user. So there are those early adopters and the techno geeks, I being one of them, that like to jump on those types of things. But until they can mass produce, they'll never get the cost down to where people will be able to afford them. I also don't see that as being a legitimate Amazon tool. It was a neat idea, but I think it was more of a gee whiz type thing than a truly useful. Just having your phone and a scan fob, that's all you need. The only thing that I would give it, and maybe it could be resurrected because of this, is I do see, and I think all of us have noticed the bit of backlash that's happening both in retail stores and in the online world, the backlash against Amazon resellers. There are many stores that frown on you going in there and scanning or buying up, and there are a lot of online stores that are starting to shut down resellers. And there's a very good reason for that as well, and I don't think that people truly understand, because the common thing you always hear is that I walked in there and I had 5 shopping carts filled with goods. I was going to be their biggest customer of the day and spend $3,000, and they told me no and asked me to leave. And I can't understand why they won't take my money. And the reason is because you loaded up on all their loss leaders and all of the items that they've been advertising to get people into their store and buy 1 or 2 of those items at very, very low margin to the store. But while they're there, they will also buy high margin items. We don't do that. We cherry pick, and we take only the things that the store is basically making nothing on. So when their regular customer walks in the door and says, yes, I'm here for this 19-inch TV that you've got advertised for $59, and they say, yeah, we're sorry, we're all sold out. And the regular customer says, wait a minute, you opened half an hour ago. How can you be sold out? You never had these, did you? And they're like, well, yeah, we did, but one guy came in and bought them all. That customer, the regular customer, leaves unhappy. So I think we're going to see that type of thing. And with the Google Glass, you might have been able to get away with being a little surreptitious and do your scanning without being obvious, and you still wouldn't be able to load up 5 carts worth, but at least they wouldn't obviously know that you're one of those scanner guys.
So give us a product that you think that needs to be developed, that hasn't been developed yet.
You know what it is for me? I think that most all of the products have been developed. I'd like to see a few tweaks made, but my big thing is I want them all to be pulled together.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there.
Yeah.
And I think, there have been, like, I know, Chris Green Scan Power has, Evaluate and has, but it would be neat if they were all in one place, just one, one tool that you could use multiple features. I think Inventory Lab has done a decent job because they have a scanner and they have some pricing and they have some things. But
right.
I agree with you. All these different merchants, it doesn't work well together, and they don't transfer from one to the other. I mean, ideally, you'd like to buy it, load it, and it goes, right? It's all one smooth transition.
Right. So that's the thing there. For the listing and the research portion of it, I love Scan Power. For the reporting and the inventory analysis, I like Inventory Lab. For the repricing, I like App Eagle. So what I need is one of these companies to be big enough to basically just buy up the others and integrate them all into one, so that we have this one perfect app that literally does everything and does it best of class. Because I think that each one of them has their strong point. Scan Power started as the scanning and research portion of that, and they do that really, really well. The mobile application is fantastic. Inventory Lab, I think, really wanted to concentrate on exactly that, your Inventory Lab. So once you've got information in there, we're going to slice it and dice it and present it to you in enough ways that you can make business decisions about what you're working with in your product. So I think they do that really well, and I think they do it better than Scan Power. They've come out with their report, but I think that they're playing a little bit of catch up on that. But I think Inventory Lab, that's their main focus. And then Scan Power and Inventory Lab, neither one of them have a repricer yet. So App Eagle comes out, and they basically own that market, and they've got the time and money invested in doing that, so they're doing a good job with it.
I think part of the problem is that, they're trying, let's use Inventory Lab, just to keep their inventory system current with Amazon, who's making a ton of changes behind the scenes that we don't see, right? Mm-hmm. And just to keep that's their whole focus. They have to stay focused on it. I think it would be difficult for them to also say, oh, let me focus on the repricing thing and let me focus on this. I think there are so many moving parts. I think that's what makes it so challenging.
Agree 100% with you.
You would think that Amazon would have their own, and they would see it as a revenue stream, and just say, hey, here you go, here's the tool. But I don't know whether that'll ever happen. It'll be interesting. I did notice tonight on Amazon that there's a new repricing method that I had not seen before. A new report. It says new, and I just tried it. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting, and it showed me buy box stuff in that. I was like, wow, that was really simple. And it was 5% below, and maybe I'm behind, maybe everybody's already seen this,
yeah.
But it was 5% below, and it was just those particular items that met that, and it popped it right up. Now, if they would allow me to, because I know it's a database, if they would allow me to change the parameters of that to meet my needs, I wouldn't need a third party, right?
Agreed.
So maybe they're getting there.
And I will tell you that as a developer myself, one of the frustrating things is that Amazon, without getting too technical, they have an API, which is an application programming interface, which just basically means that you can talk to Amazon directly, programmatically, ask a question, and they'll give you back a response. But it's a very limited set of questions that you're allowed to ask. And there are two problems with the way developers get to interact with Amazon. One is they don't make all of the information that we as sellers would like to know available to us. We do not get to do things like how many sellers total are selling on this item, what are all of the prices that it's being sold at for, what are the inventory levels of all of those sellers, all of the things that we can do roundabout and get our answers, but we can't do it programmatically. And the other thing they do is they throttle. And that is that when you say, I would like to be able to get the information on the top 500 items. Well, they'll say, well, yes, but you can't have all 500 at once. We'll give you 50, and then you can ask for another 50, and then you can ask for another 50. And that's another way of controlling the bandwidth and things of that nature, but it makes it very difficult for the guys that are developing these applications to really be able to give these full-featured applications, because Amazon just doesn't make it available to them. And I know it's a frustrating thing for them, because I know that they, in the groups that they make available to the people who have purchased their software or licensed the use of it, they hear these requests of, why can't we just do this? A big one for me is, I'd love to be able to just send a question to Amazon that says, please return me a list of the top 2,000 products in the home and kitchen category. There is no way to do that. You can't do it. There is no question that you're allowed to ask to get that. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating because, of course, Amazon has all of that available to themselves. And it would make it so easy for us to make buying decisions and informed decisions if we really could do this deep, deep analysis and find out these products that would be profitable for us.
We won't allude or even guess why they won't, so I don't want to go that far.
I don't know why they won't.
And I don't know.
Yeah,
these are smart people, and it's evolving. You think about how massive this place is. They're opening their 4th warehouse in my community now. It's under development now, 4th.
Yeah.
Huge. I mean, you drive by them, and you're driving by them saying, there it is. I can't imagine what it takes to walk from one to the other. Just putting one of those in place and developing it, I mean, it must be a huge undertaking.
Okay.
So again, similar to what we were talking about, how many distractions can you handle? So, I'm sure it's working. Okay, so I'm really looking forward to hearing about your adventure in the warehousing and a different kind of twist on things. And I've talked to a lot of different people, but you're talking co-op warehousing, and I'm already intrigued. And I ask you not to tell me early, because I really want to hear it off the cuff, because I'm really excited about it. So I'm going to take us into break, and when we come back, Michael's going to talk about how he's expanding his business, and he's grown enormously this year. He's having a great year off of a great year, but he's talking about a mega year because of some changes he's made. So let's go into break, and when we get back, we'll get to it. Today's podcast is brought to you by Seller Essentials, essential business solution for online sellers. Whether you sell general merchandise on Amazon or eBay, private label your own product, or if your focus is selling books, wholesale products, or liquidation lots, let Seller Essentials be your online resource for all things e-commerce. Essential resources, essential solutions, Seller Essentials, the Internet's premier venue for online professional. Visit selleressentials.com for more information. That's selleressentials.com. All right, before we jump back in, I think this is one of the things, hopefully you're anticipating it as much as I am, because it really changes thinking for me on warehousing. We have a warehouse. We've used prep and ship companies, and they've been great. Their mistakes are no greater than the mistakes we make ourselves. So, when I hear that, I often say that, I've done exactly the same thing they do. But here is basically premises: creating a board of directors, sharing resources, sharing a talent pool with a common theme. That common group of people keep up with the latest issues and changes that Amazon or whatever other company makes, and they handle it for you. So imagine a place where all your inventory goes and it's prepped and shipped for you. However, as the business evolves and changes, you get some say in that. And I think that's a little bit of a different twist. And I just love the ability to control your destiny rather than having somebody else control it. So I think this is a great lesson. Michael gets into amazing detail, really shares everything, and I think it's just great, valuable information. So let's get into the podcast. All right, we're back, and we're talking with Michael Flanagan. And Michael is I'm going to call him old again, that old school IT guy, but with a vast amount of knowledge. I mean, just, you listen to that first part of the podcast and you're like, wow. I mean, I know I'm sitting here saying, man, there's just somebody who really understands it well, and really, quite frankly, can explain it very well. You did a very good job letting somebody like me understand it. So I'm really hoping a lot of people got a lot from that. I know I did. So you've had a great year last year. You're having a really great year this year. You're talking about having a better year, and you said the one thing that really changed for you is a warehouse, and that's kind of where we left off. So take us into that.
Yeah, so like you, I am a part-time Amazon seller, And my wife is a professional photographer and had a small photo studio just a couple of miles from our house. And for the past 2 years, we have done all of our Amazon business. We started out just doing RA, retail arbitrage. My wife and I would go out a couple of evenings and maybe one of the days on the weekend, and it was just great. You know, we used to call it going out doing treasure hunting, and that was a great way to get started doing this. And we would bring the product back to the photo studio, and we set up an area. We had a downstairs there that we used for storage, so we set that up, and we'd bring our product down the stairs and process it all there and get it sent out. And in one of the other positions that I had held was for 2 years, a very good friend of mine, I went and worked with him. He had a multi-million-dollar restaurant equipment business, and for a couple of years I went in and helped him get that going. So I really got a good feel for ordering products in large quantities and buying from manufacturers and things of that nature. So I leveraged that and said, you know, this Amazon thing could go from I won't call it a hobby, but just a nice little fun thing to do that gave us a little extra spending money, to a real business. So I said, let me see if I can start contacting some manufacturers and maybe start establishing some wholesale accounts, and let's do some light wholesaling. And my wife thought it was a great idea. So we did that, and I found a couple of companies, but we were in an office condo, so we had no warehouse and no loading dock or anything like that. So any of the orders I would place would be strictly UPS deliverable, and they would come in boxes. And we kept doing that, and the boxes started to be more and more coming in, and it got harder and harder to lug these boxes down and up the stairs. So I said, okay, it's time for us to go look and see if we can find a warehouse so I can start ordering pallets of goods, because that's really going to bring my my margins in line with what I want, because I'm going to buy larger quantity, get better pricing, and my inbound shipping, a lot of times I can get free shipping because I'm buying in quantity. So we started to look, and as soon as you say loading dock, I was thinking I wanted just, 750 to 1,000 square feet, just something big enough for us. But as soon as you say loading dock, it's a bigger place. And everything we were looking at was 3,000 to 5,000 square feet, small size, all the way up to 30,000 square feet. And I just said, 4,000 square feet is awfully big for us. We are just not doing that kind of volume. And one of the things that I've always done in business, and I think is one of the keys to my success, is recognizing a potential need. And I always look, when I have something that I am having a problem solving or finding a resource or what have you, I immediately start to think, if I'm having this problem, other people are having this problem. So I thought, okay, let me do this. I don't want to be a prep service. There are a number of them out there that are phenomenal. I don't think we need another one. But I do think that I could find 10 other sellers that are my size, maybe a little bit bigger, that could benefit from having a warehouse and having a dedicated team that are working just for them. And also, because it's such a small group, we become a mega mastermind group, and we can start talking about doing group purchases together, where we can call a manufacturer that I know and say, look, I know I normally buy $5,000 worth of product. What would happen if I placed a $25,000 order? Would that do anything for us?
All right. Now I want you to hold there for a second, because I want to get my arms around this. So what you're describing is a workspace, similar to what you see out in Silicon Valley, all those places, right, where it's a common place where people can go. They pay a portion of the cost. They share the resources. It's open the hours they want or not, right?
No.
You're taking it a step further and sharing employees?
Well, it is not a shared warehouse where they come, because I'm talking about Amazon resellers that are scattered around the country. So what happens is they pay a fixed fee per month, which offsets all of the expenses, our rent, our electricity, our employees. They place their orders with their online orders and their wholesale orders and have them shipped to the warehouse.
So it is a prep and ship place. However, you're cooperatively managing that group.
Absolutely. So yes.
Okay, so you're not running a co-op warehouse. I am, and so is Bob, and so is Bill, and he's in Texas, and we're all running it together in essence, like a board.
Right, right.
Okay, and so you're going to have a center manager, I take it?
Yep, and that is actually my wife. We closed the photo studio, and she is now managing the warehouse operations.
And so I'm assuming there's not NDAs that people sign to keep, because there has to be some level of trust. And I assume, is there a membership fee to buy into it to help offset the initial fixed asset costs?
I basically absorbed the costs of getting it started, but yes, there is a membership fee. They pay a flat fee for processing a certain number of items. And it turns out to be cheaper than all of the other companies out there.
And that makes sense. And at 4,000 square feet, and if you're turning the inventory quick enough, now you can receive pallets.
Correct.
Does that mean you can ship them out in pallets?
Correct.
Okay, so you're saving on both ends, right? Potentially,
right? As
you scale up to that, you're able to make group purchases of bags, tape, all that kind of jazz, right?
Yep.
You're able to. So you have even taken it to the step where if I'm going to buy Legos and I say, hey, I have an option to buy $50,000 worth of Legos, I can't handle it, or I don't want to tie that much of my inventory cash into that. Would you be interested, Michael? You would. You have, as the relationships develop, that starts to become a bigger and probably better opportunity.
Absolutely, and we're already seeing that. So we're a group of 10 people. The warehouse actually opened the 3rd of this month. We are 1 month old, and we already have done 5 group buys. And I didn't expect to get going that quick because I figured it was going to take, as you said, a little bit of time to build that level of trust between the members, that they're sharing products that they're finding. It happened literally the first week. Everybody got on. We have our own little private Facebook group. We chat constantly. And it's exactly that. We'll have somebody that says, look, I have 100 of this item available, great ROI, great rank, a little bit deeper than I'd like to go. Here's what I'd like to do. How about 2 sellers split it up with me? We'll take 33 apiece. And I'm just the gatekeeper. I just say, yep, it sounds good to me. Let's go ahead and post it up on the group and see who's interested. And there you go. You've just organized that thing. It all comes to one central location. So he's able to call his manufacturer up and say, yep, ship all 100 of them to our address. When they come in, I prep them and send it out for each of the 3 people.
Well, and here's the thing to think about that trust, because I'm sure people are like, "Oh, I can't, I couldn't do that." But you're doing that when you're joining a sourcing group.
Oh yeah.
I don't care what. I don't care. Pick a group. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Any one of them. HKI sourcing group. They're sending that list to 20 people. Let's just say they only send it to 20 people.
Right.
Well, all 20 of you are doing the same thing. There's only so much inventory of that particular item, so you are really splitting that inventory with. If only 2 of you buy it, and you buy it all, you're splitting it. 3, 4, up to 20. Uh-huh. So in this scenario, that there's only going to be 3 of you. So you kind of control. So it's actually a better option.
As a group, we make the decision of how many people can be involved in this. Usually it will be the person who is bringing the deal. They will get to decide how many members they want to bring on it. But sometimes it's just, what do you guys think? And we look at the rank. We look at how many other sellers are on it, and usually the other people will say, we should only do 3 people or 4 people on this one. Other items, it's like, hey, everybody, come on, this thing is selling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units a day. There's not enough supply to go around, so anybody who wants in on it, let's get as many as we can. And we were able to control that. Whereas with the list groups out there, it's just sent out, and you really don't know what's going to happen because there's no discussion between the people who get that to say, hey, are you going to be buying on this? We know up front. We know that when this deal was brought, it's very open, and everybody knows who bought onto it because the people come up and say, I'm interested, I'm interested, and I'm interested. And then I basically say, okay, there you go. There's the 3 people that want in on this deal. So we've got control over it. And speaking of control, that is the other big thing, and we're starting to get into that now, is being able to buy out available inventory. And as Amazon sellers, we know we love doing that. When you find an item that you know this is a manufacturer closeout and we're buying it from the manufacturer, and they say there are 1,200 items available, and we say, great, we'll take all 1,200 of them. And usually it's, really? That's great. Well, yes, there's a reason, because we don't want anybody else to have them, so that we know that that's it. That's the quantity that's there. Now, our members are free to price at anything that they want. We really don't care about that, because we know that, look, somebody's model may be get in, get out, get paid. Other people are, nope, I want to maximize my return on this, so you go ahead and sell them at 30%. I'll wait for 50%.
Right, and you can't set the price together anyway,
No,
right? That would
not.
be right.
Absolutely
So you're avoiding that by only controlling the purchase price.
Absolutely.
And you know that's a beautiful thing. And you're also controlling. I mean, you know how many sellers are going to be. So you really, you know, that's the best of both worlds.
Yes.
Okay, so that is all positives. Let's talk about a couple negatives, right? A couple more things. Let me shoot a couple more holes in it so you can assure me that, you know, you've thought this through. Your manager, I know she's lovely. You married her. Say she gets sick and she can't go into work. She, you know, I don't want to talk bad about you. Right? Let's just use fictional,
yes.
fictional Mrs. X,
yes.
right? Steals, does whatever, doesn't work out. What's your B plan for a manager?
We are actively, well, I shouldn't say actively. We have a plan in place that we just need to get through fourth quarter right now. And that's the other reason I limited it to 10 sellers. It's something that we can handle fairly easily. People have asked, you know, will we add any more than 10? And I said, once we hit January, I'll decide whether or not we could handle any more, but I'm also going to open it up to the group and say, do we want any more people? So everything is just kind of slowly moving forward through fourth quarter. Once we get through fourth quarter, we're going to be hiring a warehouse manager, somebody that we're bringing in that is going to be the key person, because I do not want my wife to be the person that's on the warehouse floor.
Right.
So,
right.
Yes, absolutely. And I work there every day as well. That's another reason people say, well, why don't I quit my job and go work there? Well, one thing, I enjoy my job. They pay me well. The benefits are fantastic, and I have flex time. So I'm able to work from 8 o'clock till 1 o'clock at my day job, and then I scoot over to the warehouse, and I stay there till 5, and then I come on home, and I put a few more hours in the evening remotely to my day job, and that's it. My day's done.
All right, and you're located in Massachusetts, right?
I'm in Massachusetts. The warehouse is in New Hampshire. Beautiful, okay. Tax-free New Hampshire.
Okay, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was going to say, is there what's the benefit? So New Hampshire, so it's not that far from you, clearly.
20 minutes.
How about inclement weather? Is that an issue?
Yes, it's always an issue in the Northeast. So there is the potential that it's not like what I've heard horror stories of Minnesota and North Dakota and things like that, where you're snowed in for days on end. I think I could anticipate that there may be 1 or 2 days during the winter where UPS is delayed or is not even able to make it. So yes, that is a possibility.
But, you know, you guys just came off the most brutal winter in a long time. We all did on the East Coast here. And so, you know, did it shut the place down for days?
No, absolutely.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah, that was one of the nice things. The building that we're in, it's absolutely amazing how good the management team is there. And their snow removal was stellar. Now, I'm getting this secondhand, but I'm talking to the current tenants there, and they said they never had a problem getting in or out of the building all through that major snow that we had.
Perfect, and that's the best litmus test. You can't plan for the big disaster because you can't waste money. All right, so what about prepping? So you're selling boxes of Legos that are nice and sealed, and all they do is put a barcode on the bottom. I'm selling robots. I'm looking at an old 50s robot on my desk, and I'm selling those, and they have to be bagged. Oh, by the way, they also have to go in a box and special packaged and blah 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 blah. I mean, how do you handle seller A selling that and seller B handling that? Is there an allowance in the agreement to say, hey, special items cost more?
Nope. No. What I did is I, back of the napkin, estimated what I thought it would cost to process a single item. And then I added 50% to that. And then that's how I came up with how much it would cost per item. So that gives me that little bit of a buffer.
So you got an average. So
yes.
You're not worried that somebody's going to be only sell. I mean, let's face it, how many robots could sell, right? So you're not saying the majority of things are generally packaged this way, and this is typically 80%, the old Pareto principle, right? 80%. So that's pretty much what you're planning for. That makes sense.
Yes,
and
it's also important to know that the people that I brought in, I basically interviewed them. Every single person, before they were allowed to become a member, I did a Skype video call with, and we basically interviewed each other. I interviewed them to make sure they were a good fit for me, and of course they interviewed me to make sure I was a good fit for what they were looking to do. And I really let them know that I'm not looking for the person who is buying 3 of this item, 2 of this item, 1 of this item, and sending in all of this random stuff. I'm looking for people that are geared towards wholesale and larger volume. So most of what we do is, for example, I had 2 pallets delivered today that were stock full, but it will take us I'm going to say 2 hours to process because they're all the same item.
Right.
The only thing that could have been better is if he was commingling them.
You're right. Right. So it's just, and so there's an allowance for the number of items. So, if you could kind of give a range, right? Size sellers, are there, small sellers to mega sellers?
Yes.
Are they all mega sellers? Are they all, I'm trying to maybe in quantity. I don't know how. I don't want to do dollars. I don't want to be disrespectful.
No, I don't think it's disrespectful. I said when I was originally setting this up that I wanted sellers that were doing a minimum of $300,000 a year, and for me that was, and I've posted it live, so I don't mind telling you, it's $1,500 a month. To be a member, and this is not open to anybody. So I'm not selling anything. You can't get in. The only way to get in is if somebody decides they want to move on and a slot opens up. So it's $1,500 a month, and for that we process 2,000 items for you at no fee, no additional fee. So it works out to 75 cents per item, which I believe is cheaper than anybody else out there.
And you're paying for the bag, you're paying for
everything.
the label, you're paying for the boxes.
Yep. No extra, nothing else on top of that. And
wow.
And what I did was I said that if it's 2,000 items and I've got 10 people, that's 20,000 units a month that I'm committing to do for that fee. Then I added up all of the overhead that I had anticipated and everything that went along with it, and then said, okay, at that rate, I'll be okay. So
let me think about this. So are you scanning the items into their accounts, or they're doing like I've used the boards a few times where I send a file back and forth?
Yes.
Is that kind of how it works? So they put their items in their system, send you the labels in a file format, it produces, and then that. Okay.
Correct.
So why can't this? I mean, I think it's a genius approach. I think it's a very well thought out approach. I mean, clearly you have to have a group of people that are similar in thought and not trust. I don't want to use that word. It's similar in what their goals are.
No,
right? You have a similar set of goals.
Stephen, trust is important. It really is, because it's one of the things. I'm sure you're aware that for a while there, I was offering a service to put together mastermind groups, and because I feel so strongly about that, and a lot of times people would say, well, yeah, I belonged to a mastermind group before, but it just didn't go anywhere. Why is your particular mastermind group working so well? And I said, well, there's two guaranteed ways to have a successful mastermind group. Number one is you have to trust each other. Out of the gate, everybody should know everybody's store. Everybody should know what they're selling. Everybody should know what their volume is. These are people that you are going to work together for the benefit of all. If you don't trust these people, find another group. You're in the wrong group if you don't have trust. And the other is communication. You have to talk every single day. I am in a mastermind group now of 4 people. We talk every single day. So it's how I operate now, and it's one of the keys to my success. Absolutely.
Well, I know what's going to happen. People are going to be like, oh, my God, this is a great idea. We should be doing this, and I should be putting one out. There are going to be people want one in every blog. Are you open to talking to other people about this?
Absolutely. I encourage it. I think it's wonderful. You know who the biggest supporter of my effort is right now, because he's right around the corner from me.
I was going to say Chris Green's got to be.
No. Brendan at Prime Zero.
Oh, okay. Okay, so tell me about that.
Brendan reached out to me and said, hey, I hear you're opening up a prep service, and you're going to be in my backyard. Congrats. And I was like, okay, yes, but it's not a prep service, and I am absolutely not competition to you. And I explained my business model. And he said, that is absolutely fantastic. What can I do to help? And I said,
awesome.
Okay, where do you buy boxes? Where do you buy poly bags? What do you find the best way to wrap large quantities of product? He brought me over, showed me everything, and now we're fast friends, and to the point where I am developing an application so I don't have to do these send files back and forth. As soon as that application is done, Brendan's going to have it as well, because the two of us are splitting the cost of development. That's how you embrace other businesses and work together for the better of both.
I mean, Mark Levine, I've interviewed, exact same approach. I mean, there's a common theme. There's a couple common themes amongst the real successful sellers. You guys, you think from that same point of view. It's not. Jay Bain used the phrase cooperation.
Yes.
I just love that phrase because it just really makes sense when you think about it. We all have the same struggles. John Bullard is just a great guy to talk with about that kind of stuff. He's like, hey, we got the same struggles here. Here's what you could do. Here's how we handled it in our warehouse. And you're not even doing business with them. Same approach. So I just really appreciate that. So I see this as a big way for people to scale in the future. And scaling is all relative, right? But I just see this as such a well thought out. It does take somebody with a vision. I mean, how long have you been thinking about this before you put it in place?
6 to 8 months.
Okay, so 6 to 8 months of mental planning and then putting stuff on paper and as you said, finding the right people and interviewing them.
Right.
So the future, right? So you've already let us in on a little bit of the future. You're going to develop an app that'll help handle that file transfer because that is one of the big hassles.
Right.
It is.
Yes.
Because that's where there's usually an error, right? Because there's 2 humans involved and things go funky there.
And it also is the biggest thing for us is the time lag between making a request to somebody because especially the people that I'm working with, they're not sitting at a computer all day. So if I need them to do something for the order to move forward, it may be an hour, it may be that evening before I hear back. I need to take that out of the process.
Nice. So what else is in the future for this? Where else can you take this to?
A second warehouse on the West Coast.
Okay, so you can just have an east because one of the challenges. Well, I mean, here's a way to reduce costs. I buy a lot of toys. Guess where most of my toys come from? China,
yep.
Right? They don't come through New York City. They come through California, right? And so it makes sense to put them there. That just makes a lot of sense. So
Yeah, so I already have designs on that. It's early planning stages, so it won't happen next year, maybe the year after. But Oregon's looking good for the same reason, no sales tax.
Right.
So.
Well, that's just great. I just I do appreciate you going into detail about that and being willing to share with people, because I think people are going to get a lot of thought out of this. Just really impressive. So you got some pretty strong strengths, and I can see them transferring into this business very well. What are some of your weaknesses that you struggle with?
I think my biggest weakness is believe it or not, the attention to detail, the minutia. I'm a big ideas guy, but when it comes down to all the way down to that last little piece, I seem to miss out on that. So I'm always working on that. But that's why I have my wife, because she's the exact opposite, and I think it comes from being a photographer. I always used to joke that I would grab the camera and I would help her out if we're doing an outdoor session and maybe a wedding, and I'd be a second shooter, and I'd be taking pictures, and she'd get them back, and she's like, "Didn't you see the way that you set that up, that there's a tree branch growing out of the top of her head?" And I'm like, "No, I never even noticed that." And it's like, because you're not looking at the detail, and that's where we recognize the strengths. So I basically put processes in place and develop the technology, and then hand it over to my wife, who makes sure that, things such as, I can't believe that she's processing inventory, and somebody sent in 5 sunglasses, those as seen on TV thing, and one of them has a black frame and 4 of them have a zebra frame, and she catches that the labels all say black. I would have just been slapping the labels on. Like, come on, this is what he sent me. Here are the labels that say sunglasses. They look the same to me. She notices the picture on the box. I'm like, yeah, that is not my strong point. That's why I have nothing to do with the processing of inventory on a daily basis.
And that makes perfect sense,
Yeah.
though, right? You're hiring for your strengths, right? Again, that's what you do. Brian Vino was an auditor for the apps and stuff that you develop, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what he would do, is all that little minutia.
Yes.
And you could tell that by his questions that you see out there, that's his skill set.
Right.
He doesn't want, that's where he's good at. So I think recognizing that is a really great point, and I think that's a good nugget, is recognize your weaknesses and then find somebody to fill in those differences.
And also recognize that everybody has weaknesses, and it's not a character flaw. It's just recognize it, embrace it. And so that's where some people will say is, what's the thing that holds you back most in business? Well, that's a different question. And my answer to that is, no, there really isn't anything, because usually it's I'm not good at this. If I am stubborn and say, but I'm the only person that can do this, now that is holding me back. But if I look at it and say, you know what, this is just not something I'm very good at, but let me go find somebody who is very good at that and offload this and let them do that. So now it didn't hold me back from moving forward.
But isn't it most of the time fear that's making people not move forward?
Yes, it's absolutely fear, and it's also that I don't like the phrase, sometimes good is good enough, but it is kind of that. People tend to think that things have to be absolutely perfect, and that includes themselves, and it especially includes them when they're business people or entrepreneurs. They seem to have this feeling that to be a true entrepreneur or to be a true businessman, you need to be the master of everything, and it can't be further from the truth. As a freelance consultant for whatever it was, 15 years, I worked with an awful lot of big companies, and the projects that I worked on were usually large and meant that I was dealing with the owner of the company, the CEO, or the board. And I would talk to these people, and sometimes I'd be talking to the CEO of this company and thinking, this guy is not the brightest guy in the room. And you start listening to the way he controls the meeting and the way he brings out input from all of his people and gathers that and then makes a decision based on that. And it's like, okay, he is the smartest guy in the room because he takes his knowledge and he combines it with 10 other people sitting around this table and makes that his own. So he's now 11 people smart. And that's what I pulled out of that and said, that's what I need to do. I don't have all the answers. I never proclaim to have all the answers, but I know where to get the answers.
That's great stuff. I wrote the quote down, weakness is not a character flaw. I love it, love it, love it. And I just think that that's so sensible. So you're taking a focused approach. That false evidence appearing real, right? You're literally breaking it down, coming through and saying, I don't have the answers. I'm going to reach out to others who have better answers, and I'm going to build on it. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take that. Just love it, love it, love it. So what's the best advice that you got, Mike, that you can take and apply to this business?
You mean advice for somebody else that's maybe just getting started, or
no? Somebody has given you that you've been able to put into your business.
The best advice.
I guess
what I think it would be is that one of the problems that I had as I was coming up through my business career is that I always anticipated growth, and I would always build out or set up space, employees, and things of that nature for that anticipated growth. And I put 2 companies into the ground for that reason. And I had a lunch with a very, very smart businessman who you'd go to his space and look at it and say, how in the world do you move in here? Everything is so crowded. And he says, because my business forces me to grow. I don't grow in anticipation of my business needing it. And I'll tell you, that is something that has really turned things around. So I'm looking at it right now and saying I've got 4,000 square feet of a warehouse, and I can see where we may be pushed out of that and need to get more space. But if I had gone out and said, well, this thing could really explode. Let me get 10,000 square feet, and that way I won't have to worry about it, and we'll just grow right into that. Yep, that would have put another business into the ground because if anything goes wrong.
There are a bunch of great examples of those people out there that have said that. And they have said, I've gone up in warehouses 5 different times. But each time they kept their costs low and they got into that position where they could move up. As you're saying, if you try to build that cost up front, you're going to run out of money. I mean, it's very smart.
And that was actually negotiated in the lease with the landlord. That I said I'm going to take the warehouse as we have now, but it's written in here that if I come to you with needing more space, if you can provide the space to me, I take it from you. If you cannot provide the space to me, you release me from my lease. And he was like, absolutely, you're a smart guy.
Perfect. So I just think that people are going to pause on that and say, let me think that through. I just think it's such great advice. Again, let that cost slowly build up. Don't buy in advance. Love it. Use the money to buy inventory. Buy inventory.
Absolutely.
So any podcasts or books you can recommend for our listeners that, our goal is to move, process kind of stuff. So anything out there that you think that somebody could say, hey, this might help them?
I am actually enjoying now. I don't know if it's so much for on the Amazon side, but I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard of Pat Flynn and the Smart Passive Income website. He does a podcast, and it actually applies to Amazon because he's had a couple of Amazon sellers on that he's interviewed. But it really opens your eyes to having multiple sources of income, and that's also on my my agenda. Is once the warehouse is up and stable and things are going well, it's time to look at other streams of income that I can leverage. And it may have to do with what else can happen out of a warehouse, or it may be what else can I do, application development, whatever. But it's getting and it's the passive income, which for me is I like to do some work up front, finish it, and then be able to see income come from that indefinitely if at all possible. So that's something that I'm really going to want to get into. Books, boy, I am a voracious reader. I'm an insomniac. I sleep about 6 hours a night Some nights less than that, not because I can't sleep, but I think that's another benefit of as you get older, you don't need as much sleep. And basically around 10, 11 o'clock at night is when I start reading, and I read anything and everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying, hey, keep your mind going, stay sharp. Smart Passive Income, Jessica LaRue, Cliff and Jessica. I remember that interview he did, and it was an amazing interview, and he's a great example. So I agree with you. That's a perfect one. The goal of this podcast is to help people move forward, and I think you've opened people's eyes. I honestly believe that people are going to be like, wow, I've never thought of it that way. I mean, and the prep companies are really great. They really are. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But you're saying, hey, here's a little bit of a twist on it where you have some stake in the game. And I just think that could be a very valuable tool, especially if you really want to have some control over it, right? In essence, they're a board of directors in one way, right? They have input.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's a little different. So I think that people are really going to get a lot from it. So I'm going to ask you to dig deep for one more process improvement. You've given us a whole bunch to really think about tonight. But just come back and just give me something that you think that even a small seller could do tomorrow, not tonight, tomorrow. Give them a night's sleep because they're going to sleep longer than your 6 hours. Yes. But they're going to get out there and they're going to put in practice in their business today.
It absolutely, unequivocally is to join or create your own mastermind group. Find sellers that are similar personality to you and reach out to them. And the best way to get it started is everybody belongs to all of these Facebook groups. There will be people that you see post and it brings a smile to your face, or their style. They've talked about what they're buying and how they work and things like that may align with what you're doing. And just go out there and reach out to those people. And what I try and say is start giving. Don't ask for them to do anything. Just say, I've seen you online, or maybe we've met at a conference or something like that, and I would just love to be able to bounce some ideas off of you, and start giving. And just say, hey, I happen to be at a store. I found this product. You might want to check your local stores and see if you can find it. I promise you, if you share and you give all that you can, you will get more than you ever gave.
As the Bible says, tenfold. You know, again, another common theme, Mindy Lipsick. I mean, just a perfect example of talking the same thing. Chris Green, all of them, that jab, 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 right hook. I mean, that's what you're talking about. It's just give.
Right.
Then maybe ask, but give.
Yep.
You know, so, Michael, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight. You made me think, and I'm a thinker, and so you've really made me think a little differently about this cooperative warehousing. I just think it's been a great interview, and I'm really appreciative of it.
My pleasure.
Have a good night.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the E-Commerce Momentum Podcast. All the links mentioned today can be found at ecommercemomentum.com under this episode number. Please remember to subscribe and like us on iTunes.